Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello.
Josh, sir, it seems like there is a massive Elder Scrolls leak doing the rounds, but it's not fully verified yet, but we'll dive into it. I really want to believe this, and there's some stuff in here that sounds very exciting, but at this stage, big old pinch of salt. This is one of the most verifiable links you'll ever come across, though, as is also the name of the Reddit post that it was verified inside. There's a whole bunch of people have followed up on this and sort of gone, okay, how the hell do we get to the bottom of this? What's real, what's not? And the general opinion is that it is true, but we'll have to see. So it originally came from a poster over on the Elder Scrolls wiki. They used a name called Throwaway13579, and then that made its way over to the Gaming Leaks and Rumors Reddit, where the moderators there were sent over from this same person some NDA, a screenshot of an NDA, and some other documents, which they obviously they can't verify it on Bethesda's side, but they've said that sure is an NDA, that sure is some documents, that seems like that would be a thing, and so that's kind of what we're running with. The initial post on the wiki is the thing that breaks down the gameplay elements and story-based stuff and some lore stuff, and then in terms of why you should believe it, this person has either an immaculately made fake NDA or they're just game to break their career telling Reddit.
Yeah, so, I mean, in the thread, they mentioned that the NDA looks pretty real, and they could have made it. They could have done a fake one, but they would have had to have had it ready, because they replied within 5 minutes of asking for evidence, and then it was just there. So unless they've been planning this for a while, it does kind of hold water a little bit, or at least we shouldn't discredit it entirely.
Not yet. I mean, obviously, you can make your own opinions down in the comments. There's so much to this, which again kind of makes it seem real, but we'll see. So first up, the name Elder Scrolls 6 Redfall. This lines up with the trademark that ZeniMax filed back in 2018. There was a whole trademark dispute over that, but apparently they are still going forward with Elder Scrolls Redfall. This was mentioned in a forum by one of the ex-Elder Scrolls writers as of last year, chimed in and said, look, it's not called Redfall. So you can kind of go back and forward on that too. But I guess in terms of the name, Redfall isn't a specific place, but it refers to the Red Guards and that particular race or species. Race? I forget what they are, the Red Guards. I never played as them. I was a high elf. But what do you think of the name Redfall?
It's very Elder Scrolls, isn't it? A lot of these things aren't I don't know whether it's going to be the official final one, or whether it's a working title that will eventually be changed, because I don't know. The Elder Scrolls titles are always a bit uninspired, they just do the job. The Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim didn't really inspire much. Listen, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not going to poo-poo all over this. But it's just like saying that, to me, that the next Fallout is going to be called Fallout 5. You know what I mean? We can extrapolate more from the Elder Scrolls title, obviously, its setting and stuff and who's going to be involved. But from a pure title perspective, I'm that's expected. Yeah.
The thing is, I'll get onto I'll get onto all of this. I think I know why it's called Redfall, but the release date, according to the rumor, is actually Q4 2024. Now this clashes with the 2025 rumors that were doing the rounds, but apparently they were proven false according again to Reddit. But the new leak, according to this, points to 2024. Also, he notes that Starfield is coming next year in 2021, so it's not going to be the rest of this year. Now Bethesda did say that Starfield is coming first, and then it'll be Elder Scrolls 6. But what do you think of a 2024 release date?
I think that, if anything, is a bit optimistic, you know what I mean? Even though the Elder Scrolls 6 was announced a long time ago, they made it very clear it was in very early pre-production, and they had Starfield on their hands, like you said, which is a huge, a project for them. It's the first new original series that they've essentially done since they started swapping between the Elder Scrolls and Fallout in 2008. Obviously they were developing Fallout 3 for a long time before then, so I do think they've got a lot on their hands, and they perhaps, for me, maybe announced it a bit early. It's more or less the inverse of what they did with Fallout 4 when it was 6 months before release, and they said, look, it's real, it's coming at the end of the year, enjoy it. This time around they've just kind of said, the Elder Scrolls 6 is happening at some point in the future. So for me, 2024, for as horrible as it sounds to say out loud, that would be perhaps a bit optimistic, because think how long these games take. It's been already nearly 5 years between Fallout 4 and Starfield. If that's not coming out till next year, that will have had 6 years in the oven, you know what I mean? So to then turn the Elder Scrolls around in a 3-year gap between then, to me seems a bit ambitious. Obviously, they're going to have multiple studios working on this at the same time, but it won't be, a lot of development, I wouldn't think. I can't imagine them splitting studios entirely. You would assume that they would have most, if not all of the workforce making one project, because if they have too many cooks in the broth, as it were, they might end up, dare I say it, with a Fallout 76, situation. I feel like, oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, do you know what needs to be in that broth? A new game engine.
Go on.
It's just a new anything that would run would be good.
You are right.
It's just I've got a whole undercurrent of whatever Bethesda for all this, but I hope it's fine. Anyway, this is apparently set 6 years after Skyrim, and it's set in both High Rock and Hammerfell, which was in the initial teaser that they put out that you mentioned, in that sort of Hail Mary E3 press conference where they said, "Don't worry, we've got stuff coming." They showed the flyover showing the one of the rivers, and it was Hammerfell and High Rock, maybe the other way around in terms of where they were placed, but those two regions were what was bisected by that river. And that obviously then led people to discuss whether it was going to take place in one or the other. Apparently it's both. And that also means that the leak then breaks down the state of both regions. Now, Hammerfell is apparently more well-off and stable, according to, in general, in terms of, the assumptions based on, Tamriel living. But also High Rock is apparently filled with a bunch of sub-regions, kind of like how Skyrim was. And there's always factional warfare between the two. Now, this plays into one of the new gameplay mechanics that they have, where they want to have hundreds of characters battling on screen in real time. Excuse me. Now that gets compared to the mission from Skyrim, which it's one of the story missions in the new one is a main story mission features literally hundreds of orcs charging down a mountain and pillaging/burning down a city called Johanna, and the leaker compares it to the Siege of Whiterun from Skyrim times 10. What do you think of them doing this stuff? I don't think that the frame rate will handle it.
Dude, right, assuming they have optimized the engine so they can pull it off. This makes me excited, and this is why I want this leak to be true, because I love the Civil War stuff in Skyrim, but it was way underdeveloped. Bethesda has admitted that thread in that game was heavily cut, and ambitions had to be curtailed, and they couldn't do the Civil War story as they wanted to. So to get an Elder Scrolls 6 focused on these, factional wars, essentially, having these massive battles, that's something I desperately want if the engine can run it. That's something that the Elder Scrolls has always been missing, because I suppose although it's dabbled in grand scales, you've got the Oblivion plains, you've got the big wars in Skyrim, you've got dragons and stuff. I always felt like when it comes to the big set pieces, it's always struggled to feel as grand as the story is, because of the limitations of, like you said, the frame rate and getting everything to work properly. For me, the series always excels in the smaller character moments, so to get those complemented by the bigger set pieces would be a genuine dream come true, because I remember playing the Civil War factions in Skyrim and thinking, this could be so good, but there's only about 10 of us and it doesn't convey the scale needed. But if you can sort that out with, it's going to be well over 10 years by the time Elder Scrolls 6 launches since Skyrim came out. 13 years if this is true. Surely that's enough time, that's enough know-how, that's enough of a technological leap to make this happen, and it would be something that we haven't really seen before in the series.
If they can perfect, if you are in some large-scale battle, but you're also still having character-based interactions with individuals that you care about that are in the middle of that fray, kind of like some, Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings style large battle where you're sort of zooming in, talking to people, have these micro interactions, and then boom back out and have this macro thing. I love the idea of that. Again, I'm just all of this is always going to be me going, but I don't think they can do it. But maybe. I've been blown away before. It was just back in 2011. I haven't literally ever thought Bethesda have been on their game since 2011, but you never know. So according to geography-based stuff, in terms of things that you might be able to see and go to, Durrani Tower is going to be a thing. Now this is one of the oldest towers in Tamriel, and it's seen in Elder Scrolls Online. Apparently that's just something that they want to have in there, because it's kind of like in Oblivion, where you could always see the tower. I forget the name of the one in Oblivion, but you could always see that tower. They want to have this main landmark, so you kind of know where you are at all times. And that's kind of like a handy thing in terms of just gameplay legibility, I guess, when you're exploring an open world. The leak also mentions Daggerfall is going to be the biggest city that Bethesda has ever built, and quote unquote, they're taking notes from CD Projekt Red, creating the feeling of a dense, bustling city, and then also giving civilians day-night cycles and living patterns. Obviously, the Elder Scrolls 2 was Daggerfall as well, but it seems like they want to revisit that stuff. Now, I think this is why it's called Redfall, because I'm assuming that somewhere in all that factional warfare, insurrection type stuff, the Red Guards are going to try and take take Daggerfall, and that might be one of your biggest, big final fights. Maybe renaming it as Redfall based on the way the story goes. Pure conjecture on my part, but that seems to make a lot of sense. But yeah, what do you think of them doing like a CDPR Witcher-style main city?
Dig it, man. Like, I love what Bethesda's done with cities over the past few games. Like, all of the different cities in Skyrim, like, they were so fun to explore for the first time round. I remember playing that game, getting about 50 hours in, and still having some of, like, the major areas left unexplored because there was so much to do in each of, like, the towns and each of the big cities. So many faction quests to get lost in, so many side quests, so many main quests, so much to do that it just made those games feel so big and so dense and so rich with, kind of like culture and story and flavor text and stuff like that. And I even think they did a good job in Fallout 4 making, like central Boston, I almost said there, Boston, that kind of like urban area was something that, Fallout really kind of excels in, having those, blown up skyscrapers and that kind of, just that sort of intense city area. And I think like if you can take that again and build upon it in the Elder Scrolls 6, it's kind of more of the same, but it's still ambitious, it's still good. And I like the fact that they're taking a page out of CD Projekt Red's book, because like the towns in The Witcher 3 feel so lifelike, they feel so lived in. And Elder Scrolls has always done that, but I like that Bethesda seem like they're no longer living in kind of like a vacuum. They've always seemed to create their past games not necessarily looking at what other people are doing and assuming that what they've got is still going to be like the cream of the RPG crop. Whereas now, like you said, they haven't had a great decade, and I don't think that's necessarily true anymore. So the fact that they are kind of holding up their hands and going, look, we need to take some pointers. Some people are excelling in areas that we aren't excelling in anymore. How can we remedy that while still giving people, the stuff that we do well, and also building on that and making that good? So to cut that long tangential answer short, Scott Tilford, I do want to see a big city, and I want to see Daggerfall bigger and better than ever before.
The thing that I want, if you go back and look at the Elder Scrolls 2, the Daggerfall artwork is like the most metal thing you've ever seen. It's like a Trivium album cover. Bring on that. I don't care how you do it. Just give me that crazy artwork again. And yeah, true to what you said. CDPR absolutely had Bethesda's lunch, as far as I'm concerned. The Witcher 3 completely proved that you could do large scale, fully interactive RPGs and not sacrifice, character detail, but a character model detail, and general bugs and glitches and polish. So there is that. Now the next thing down is side quest design. And there's an example given, because basically they want to have more rewarding side quests that aren't just go over here, talk to this one person, go over here, talk to the next person. And so the example that they give is this is apparently one of the side quests that you can do in Elder Scrolls 6, is that you're asked by a Khajiit mother to take care of her kids. It's like these 3 adorable little kitten children, and they seem all unassuming and innocent and everything. But when the mother leaves, they then trash the room that you're in and break everything, and they start eating like other little rodents and stuff. And when the mum comes back, she's apparently furious that the room has been destroyed and you didn't take care of it. And it's then up to you whether you speech check to get out of it. You can calm it down, or you can just go into straight on combat, kill her, and then all the 3 children then get left at the nearby orphanage. So
lovely.
you can do that if you want. That seems like that sort of, I don't know, skirting around like dark subject matter is the sort of thing that I think Bethesda do really well when they let themselves do it. As in terms of, I don't know if that would, in terms of the beat for beat, the way that story feels like it would roll out, it's still go here, do this, go here, do that. But if the script writing is like, fun and memorable and like kind of energetic, then it's more memorable than the stuff they've done before. To quickly jump into another gameplay mechanic though, they discuss ship travel, and that they're going to have these ships that you can staff with other NPCs. Could not think what they're called. Other friends I was going to go for. That's not even a thing at all. But they talk about taking ships between different isles and different islands. And apparently there's the isle called the Isle of Balfiera. Never heard of that. Don't play Elder Scrolls Online, but apparently that's a thing. Where a major story event happens. But the idea of going between multiple islands is apparently a new gameplay mechanic, because you'll be given a ship that you can customize. And there's a variety of different ones, going from smaller ships, rowboats, to big foresail pirate ships that can be crewed by NPCs in the same way that the player can assign NPCs to different jobs at settlements from Fallout 4. So what do you think of them doing? They're pretty much doing an Assassin's Creed at this point, like doing the whole, the way that the ship mechanics work, and just the general way the open world feels, and the whole idea of like little faction wars kicking off left, right, and center. It's very Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
And I quite like it. You know what I mean? Like, I like the idea of being able to travel in that way because, you know, for as good as the past games have been, it's been a lot of walking around and there's a lot of wonder, don't get me wrong, to come from that. But to think about ways that they could improve, like vehicle exploration and vehicle combat like that is interesting. Sadly, the boat stuff in Assassin's Creed has never really appealed to me, so I kind of have to hold my hands up and say that might not necessarily be for me, but I know a lot of people bloody love it, and a lot of people love pretending to be pirates, and I'm all here for Bethesda kind of,
you speak for yourself, Edward Kenway is a full-on pirate.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, I know. Like,
He's got the pistols,
people...
mate.
He does have the pistols, mate. But for me, like boats, introducing like boats and having a team that you can assign and like probably do missions for you. That's a pro because it gets to, you know, shake up how Bethesda treats their level design. Now it's not just one big landmass that you can swim over and stuff, but now you have different ways of getting to essentially radically different areas. You know what I mean? Things don't have to make necessarily geographical sense anymore. You can have wacky things kind of right next to each other, separated by bodies of water. And I'm all for that variety and that creativity and just kind of giving the player more options with how they move around the world and more versatility in what they can do. Because let me tell you, man, like for as much as I love trying and failing to jump over mountains, it's not an effective mode of travel because you go falling back to the floor and then you have to reload a save and then you have to try it again just to make sure, but then you die again and then you just walk around. And I want other ways to move.
Put a horse on the side of a wall and slowly get it up the side of a mountain. I do like the idea, based on what you said before, about different, like, you know, nothing has to make sense next to each other, separated by bodies of water. That just reminds me of everyone's Animal Crossing island. So I like the idea of them just sort of doing a giant version of New Horizons. The leaker does mention that they're already planning a ship-based DLC that will be centered on Stros Mackay. Now, again, haven't heard of that, but the Scrolls fans will know what that is. But I like the idea that they're doing a little bit of ship-based stuff in the main game, and then if you really like that, they're going to assumedly segment it off so you can go and get lost in that stuff. I will say that in Assassin's Creed, I think the ship-based stuff is really good fun and tactile and quite like responsive, considering that it's this weird side mode that became a full-on thing. But yeah, it's like, in terms of something to discuss, it's like that idea of what can you plug into the Elder Scrolls formula, maybe ship combat or at least ship traversal, and you're, you know, assigning different crewmates to make sure that you get from place to place, kind of like in Sea of Thieves, you know, trying to get someone to man the mast and someone else can keep an eye on the map and make sure where you're going and make sure you're going to the right place. The last thing is that spellcrafting is back. This was in Elder Scrolls Oblivion. They brought it back in Elder Scrolls Online, but it wasn't in Skyrim, that idea of customizing and making your own spells. One of the biggest fan requests, so it makes sense that they would bring this stuff back. In the leak, he says he doesn't know that much more about it, but I guess it's like a general thing. Spellcrafting's pretty badass, I would say.
Good. Yes, I was never, I'm not gonna lie to you, in all of my Elder Scrolls kind of experience, I've never really dabbled with the mage stuff. I quite like it, but I'm just a basic sword and shield guy. Maybe a bow and arrow if I'm feeling a bit flirty. Well, I always do the, obviously, I go through like the major guilds and stuff, do all the quests around them, but like, nah, meaningless to me, that Scott Tilford. You know what? No, I'm pleased it's there, but for me personally, unless they're magic bow and arrows, which you can sometimes get, magic swords and stuff, I'm out.
Look, all
just
I'm
like that.
Is that you could make a custom spell and call it the hairspray, and then you could just do whatever you need to for the rest of that game.
I would never have to buy hairspray ever again. Correct.
It just comes out of your fingertips. Anyway, let us know what you think down in the comments below. Do you want to see things like ship combat? Do you like the idea of factional warfare? And do you want to go between both Hammerfell and High Rock? Or should they stick to one particular location? For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
I'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.